Day 28. That was the last thing she wrote on the mirror. Just day 28, in tiny numbers next to her eyeliner smear. I stood there brushing my teeth, staring at it like a fool. There had been other numbers before it. Day 17, day 21, day 23. She never explained them. I never asked. I guess I thought it was some weird fitness thing, or a skincare challenge. Something harmless. Turns out, it was a countdown. The day before, she left her wedding ring in the fridge. Right next to the almond milk I stopped drinking months ago. She didn't say a word. Just opened the fridge, took out the ring like she was grabbing cheese, and walked out the door in heels she used to say hurt her feet. I still stood by the door like a trained dog when she left. I don't know why. Habit, maybe. Or maybe I was hoping she'd say something. She didn't even glance back. By that point, I hadn't been kissed in over 3 weeks. The last time she touched me, she flinched halfway through and pretended her neck hurt. And before you say anything, yes, I begged. I planned dates she never showed up for. I made playlists she never listened to. I even learned how to use TikTok to send her one of those stupid relationship goals videos. She replied with a thumbs up emoji. That was the last message I got from her. But what broke me wasn't the silence. It wasn't the way she stopped laughing or how she'd hum around the apartment when she thought I wasn't there. What broke me was the receipt I found in the trash. From a fancy hotel in the city. Dated last Saturday. 1 night, 1 room, 2 breakfasts. She had told me she was working late. I stared at that receipt for an hour, hands shaking so badly I ripped it in half. Then I taped it back together. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted her to see it. Maybe I wanted to give her a chance to lie to my face again. Instead, I did something else. I bought flowers, the ones she once said looked tacky and forced. I left them on the kitchen table in the vase her mother gave us. I wrote a note, folded neatly. Thanks for the best month of our marriage. Next to it, the divorce papers. Signed. Stapled. Final. I didn't slam the door when I left. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't take the cat. I just walked out in the same hoodie I'd worn for 4 days straight, hands in my pockets, like a ghost she had already stopped seeing. But here's the thing. I didn't go far. Because I knew something she didn't know. Something that had been sitting quietly in the back of my phone for weeks. A live tracker, linked to a device she didn't know was still active. And tonight, it lit up. She's not at work. She's not at home. She's not even in the city. She's at a lake house 2 hours away, one I've never been invited to. And someone else just turned on the porch light. The drive out was quiet. No music. No calls. No thoughts I wanted to admit. Just the sound of my engine and the GPS tracker pulsing like a heartbeat in my pocket. Her location had gone live around 8:17 p.m. It stayed still. No movement. Coordinates led to a rural road I didn't recognize, with no streetlights and no Wi-Fi. This place wasn't in her texts. Wasn't in our shared calendar. Wasn't even in her saved Airbnb bookmarks. I knew that because, yes, I checked. Weeks ago. Because when you're being ignored for nearly a month, your brain doesn't stay idle. It wanders. It investigates. It tries to catch what your heart already knows but is too terrified to say out loud. She was hiding something. The last time she mentioned a lake house, it was in passing. Sloane's family cabin, she'd said. Some girl from her old book club. I'd never met Sloane. I didn't know her last name. I just remember my wife laughing softly to herself when I asked if Sloane was single. She's not into men, she said flatly, almost annoyed. Why are you asking? I wasn't. I was just trying to feel included. But now, as I pulled off the main road and followed a dirt path toward the pin on my screen, I realized something that sent a chill through my chest. She never said Sloane was the only one there. The porch light glowed like a lie in the dark. Her car was there. The silver sedan with the scratch on the left bumper, the one she swore came from a shopping cart. It was parked crooked, like she was in a rush to get inside. The windows were lit up. The curtains barely closed. I didn't go in. I didn't even knock. I parked far enough away that no one would hear, turned off my headlights, and walked down the side of the house through the trees. I didn't come here to fight. I came here for answers. The sliding glass door in the back wasn't locked. A soft breeze blew through the mosquito net. Inside, laughter, her laughter, the kind I hadn't heard in weeks. Then a second voice. A man's. I didn't recognize it at first. But then it said her name. And the way he said it. Not Darla, like I always said. He said D, like a nickname. Familiar. Intimate. Comfortable. Like he'd said it 100 times before. I stood there, fists clenched in my hoodie, staring through the slit in the curtain as shadows moved on the other side. 2 wine glasses. A record player. Her in a robe I'd never seen. Him sitting cross-legged, barefoot, flipping through a vinyl collection like he belonged there. Like they belonged. My legs didn't work for a full minute. I just stood there, frozen, while the scene in front of me dismantled everything I'd been trying to preserve. And then I saw something that made my stomach drop straight through the earth. On the table next to the wine, sitting casually like it meant nothing at all, was her wedding ring. The same one that disappeared into our fridge 3 days ago. She didn't forget it. She didn't misplace it. She brought it, to take it off in front of him. She wanted it to be seen. She wanted me to see it. I turned around and walked back to my car before I could do something stupid. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even feel angry. I felt erased. But as I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles ached, I remembered something. I wasn't the only one Darla had been ignoring lately. Her sister had texted me last week asking if Darla was okay. Her boss had called twice to ask if she was still planning to return to work full-time. And just yesterday, her mother left a voicemail that ended with, "I know something's wrong. Call me when you can, or when you want to." Something wasn't adding up. And it wasn't just infidelity. It was bigger, stranger. Like this wasn't just about another man. Like Darla had been planning something long before I ever noticed she stopped saying goodnight. The next morning, I didn't wake up in my apartment. I didn't even go home. Instead, I parked outside a 24-hour diner on the edge of town and sat there until the sun came up behind the rusted, open sign. I hadn't slept. I hadn't eaten. I just watched couples come and go from the booths, sipping coffee and arguing gently about syrup or road trips or rent. The kind of fights you have when you're still in it together. I envied them, because I realized I'd been fighting alone for months. I kept replaying that scene from the lake house in my head. Her robe, the soft jazz playing, the wine, the man who called her D. It was intimate, familiar, practiced. Not awkward. Not new. That's what hit me hardest. This wasn't spontaneous. This wasn't impulsive. This was rehearsed. And I started asking myself questions I hadn't dared to touch before. How long had she been seeing him? Where did they meet? What was real, and what had she been faking? The answers didn't come, but something else did. As I sat there watching steam rise off my untouched coffee, my phone buzzed. A notification from our shared cloud drive. One of the few apps we never disconnected after things went cold. She'd just uploaded a folder. Personal docs. Backup. I opened it, not really thinking. Expecting maybe insurance paperwork or some work files. But inside, I found something that turned my blood cold. Scans of a lease agreement. Not ours. A new apartment. A studio downtown. Lease start date? 3 days from now. Her name on the signature line. His name, the same man from the lake. Listed as an emergency contact. Not me. Even in paperwork, I was already replaced. That wasn't the worst part. There was a note. A PDF file titled, "To M, if needed." I clicked. It was a letter. Not handwritten. Typed. Formal. Almost rehearsed. Like it was part of some script she planned to use only if things went badly. It read, "If you're reading this, it means I didn't get the chance to tell you in person. I'm sorry it had to be this way, but we've both known things weren't working. I hope you find peace, and I hope you don't make this harder than it needs to be. Please don't contact me. This is what I need. D." No love. No signature. No explanation. I stared at it for a long time. Something about it didn't feel like her voice. Darla could be cold, yes. Distant, moody, sarcastic, even cruel. But this was different. Detached. Sanitized. Robotic. Like it wasn't even for me. It felt like a draft someone else had helped her write. And suddenly, I remembered something strange that I'd dismissed before. About 2 months ago, I found a small leather-bound notebook under the couch. I thought it was a grocery list at first, but inside were page after page of dialogue. Things like, "You have to understand, I felt alone. This isn't about him, it's about me. You'll move on. You're stronger than you think." At the time, I assumed it was part of some writing project she was working on. She used to journal, dabble in screenwriting during college. But now, it looked like scripts. Lines she'd been memorizing. Practicing what to say when she finally walked out. She didn't just ghost me. She'd workshopped her exit. Planned every move. Anticipated every question. And while I was sleeping on the couch and asking if she wanted soup or space, she was mapping out a future that didn't include me. With precision. I started digging. I went back to our old shared drive history, back before the silence started. I found 2 deleted video files, both recovered thanks to auto backup. The first one was just 10 seconds long. Blurry. Shot in a mirror. She's trying on outfits and posing. Smiling. Hair down. Lipstick. The shade she told me she grew out of. The second one was worse. It was her. Sitting on our bed. Whispering into the camera. Practicing how to say goodbye. I don't want to do this anymore. I just need something different. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. 3 times. Then she laughed. She looked at the camera, tilted her head, and said, "Nope. Too dramatic. He'll cry." Then she deleted the file. But not before the backup saved it. I didn't go to work the next day. I didn't even call in. I just turned off every alarm on my phone and sat on the floor beside my bed, watching dust curl in the sunlight. My body moved like it belonged to someone else. I kept playing her whisper over and over in my head. Nope. Too dramatic. He'll cry. She knew. She knew I'd break. And yet she still choreographed it, word for word, step by step. I'd seen movies where people fake love, but never imagined someone would fake a goodbye. Not like this. Not so cleverly. I thought that was the bottom. But around 11:12 a.m., I got a voicemail. Unknown number. Transcription didn't load. I played it, expecting maybe a spam call or a bank notification. Instead, I heard a shaky, nervous voice I didn't recognize. Marshall? I don't know if this number still works, but you need to be careful. I don't think she's who you think she is. I tried to warn her before, but now she's gone, and I think you're next. The voice cracked, like the caller was trying not to cry, or afraid someone might hear them. Then the call cut out. No number. No callback option. No name. I played it 3 more times, analyzing the pauses, the tone, the background noise. Nothing jumped out except a soft mechanical hum in the background, like a fan or maybe a printer. I checked the metadata on the voicemail. Timestamped at 3:04 a.m. Same hour she was at the lake house. But that didn't make sense. Who would be calling me about her in the middle of the night? Unless someone had been watching, listening, tracking her the same way I had. I didn't want to sound paranoid, but my brain was already there. If she planned her exit with such precision, rehearsed lines, pre-written letters, new leases, backups of backups, then what else was going on? I had to do something I promised myself I wouldn't. I called her mother. Darla's mom, Wendy, had always been warm to me. She crocheted a scarf for me one Christmas and once gave me a weird bottle of organic beard oil because she thought, you hipster types like that stuff. I hadn't spoken to her since the last family dinner 6 months ago, the one where Darla snapped at me in front of everyone for mixing up quinoa with couscous. When Wendy picked up, she sounded surprised. Guarded. Oh, hi Marsh. I wasn't expecting to hear from you. I didn't waste time. I asked if she knew anything. About Darla's sudden withdrawal, about the guy I saw at the lake house, about the strange voicemail. She went silent. For too long. Then she said something that shattered the ground under me. You mean he came back? I froze. What do you mean back? I thought she ended it. A while ago. She told me it was over. That he scared her. That she blocked him. That who scared her? I pushed. I asked for a name. A timeline. Anything. Wendy sighed. Then whispered. I don't know all the details, Marshall. She was vague. She said he was someone from years ago. That he showed up again last winter. I asked if you knew, and she said no. She said she couldn't tell you. That he wouldn't like that. That line. He wouldn't like that. I felt the air leave the room. This wasn't just cheating. This wasn't a love affair or midlife crisis. This was fear. Secrecy. Control. I asked Wendy if she thought Darla was in danger. Her silence told me everything. And then she said, softly, do you remember her friend Angela? The one from her grad program? I did. Barely. Met her once. Quiet girl. Glasses. Nervous energy. Always seemed to be watching Darla too closely. She went missing, Wendy said. In July. What? Angela. Her roommate filed a report. No one knows what happened. Darla refused to talk about it. Changed the subject every time. Said it was complicated. I couldn't breathe. My hands shook. I remembered seeing a news blip on social media about a missing woman from Darla's old university, but I never connected the dots. Never thought to ask. And now I was sitting in a half-empty apartment, surrounded by silence, realizing I'd married someone who had been living a double life. Maybe even running from something. Or someone. The final blow came that night. I logged back into the cloud drive. Not hers, mine. The one she didn't have access to. I found a document I hadn't opened in months. A resume draft I saved for her when she was applying to jobs. Nothing weird, just old files. But at the very bottom of the document, below the last paragraph, buried in white text that blended in with the page, was a single sentence. I only saw it by accident when I clicked and dragged across the page. It read, "He knows too much. It has to be soon." I couldn't sleep after finding that hidden sentence. I just sat on the floor in the dark, rereading those 7 words like they were etched into my skin. He knows too much. It has to be soon. I tried to tell myself it wasn't meant for me. Maybe it was an old note she'd typed while watching some crime drama. Maybe it was just a writing experiment. Maybe anything. But deep down I knew. That text wasn't random. It was hidden, purposefully, meticulously, intentionally buried in a document she knew I'd never look at again. It was a message, and it was left for someone else. I needed answers, but I couldn't go to her. Not when I didn't even know where she was half the time anymore. Not when she clearly didn't want to be found, or worse, wanted me to follow her. So I reached out to the last person who had been around her recently. The one person who should have warned me sooner. Harlan. He was my oldest friend. We met in community college, both working the front desk of a failing gym that played the same 7 country songs on loop for months. He helped me move into my first apartment. I stood by him during his second divorce. He was the first one I told when I knew I wanted to marry Darla. At the time, he smiled and said, "Just make sure she loves you more than your dumb playlists." He always made jokes like that. Always had my back. Or so I thought. I called him. No answer. I texted. Nothing. But the third time I called, he finally picked up, breathless, like he'd been running. "Marshall, yeah, I need to talk to you." "Is this about Darla?" That sentence landed harder than it should have. He didn't even ask what. He just knew. He sounded tired. Guilty. We met in a public park later that afternoon. Harlan showed up wearing sunglasses even though the sky was overcast, and the first thing he said wasn't hello, it was, "I didn't think it would go this far." That stopped me cold. Didn't think what would go this far? He didn't answer at first, just paced, rubbing the back of his neck. Then he muttered, "She said you were obsessed, that you were tracking her. She asked me to keep an eye on you." I laughed, out loud, not because it was funny, because I didn't know what else to do. "So you were spying on me? For her?" He winced. "Not like that. I mean, not at first. She came to me a couple months ago, said she didn't feel safe, that you were getting controlling, that you were accusing her of things." She seemed shaken, man. I wanted to scream, but instead I just whispered, "Did she tell you I was sleeping in my car to give her space? That I was making dinner she wouldn't eat? That I bought her flowers just to remind her I was still here?" Silence. He didn't look at me. "You know what's funny?" I said. "I caught her at a lake house with some guy. And you know what I didn't do? I didn't storm in. I didn't break anything. I didn't even raise my voice." "She said you were following her." I was. I held up my phone. Because the woman I married suddenly started living like a stranger. I thought she was cheating. I thought that was the big secret. But now I'm thinking that might have been the least of it. Harlan sat down hard on a bench and buried his face in his hands. "I didn't know about the lake house. Who was she meeting? You know, don't you?" He didn't answer. "Harlan," I said quietly, "if something happens to me, if I disappear or turn up somewhere I was never supposed to be, you're going to be the first name I leave behind." That got his attention. His face turned pale. "Don't say that. Then talk." He let out a long breath. Then, finally, he said it. "I dated her. Before you. A long time ago." I blinked. "You never told me that." "Because it ended badly. I thought it didn't matter. We weren't serious. A few months, that's it." "Doesn't matter?" I said through gritted teeth. "You let me marry her without telling me you two had history?" I thought it was buried. She said she didn't even remember it the same way. But then she called me again this spring. Out of nowhere. Said she needed someone who understood. Said you were unraveling. And you just believed her? She told me I wasn't the first she'd had to run from. I stepped back, heart pounding. "What does that mean?" "I don't know," Harlan said. "But I think she's done this before. To other men. Maybe not legally. Maybe not with police reports. But emotionally. Financially. Strategically. She gets close. She builds a life. Then she disappears. She left a guy in Portland. Another one in Tulsa. Both thought they were her one. Neither saw her leave." He reached into his coat and pulled out something that made me stop breathing. A USB drive. Black. No label. She gave me this once. Told me to keep it in case something happened. I never looked at it. Thought it was insurance documents or something boring. But now? He shook his head. I think it's a puzzle piece. I took it. My fingers trembled. Why me? I think she needs someone to believe her story. Someone to make it look real until it's not. You mean like a decoy? No. Worse. He looked me dead in the eye. I think you were the rehearsal. And now the real act's about to start. I didn't go straight home after Harlan handed me the USB. I sat in my car with it resting on the passenger seat like it was a live grenade. I stared at it for 20 full minutes, trying to convince myself not to open it. I even held it over the trash can at one point, thumb hovering, thinking maybe ignorance would hurt less than whatever truth was buried inside. But that's the problem with betrayal. Once you get a taste of the truth, you can't go back to bland, comforting lies. Your brain starts clawing at every detail, replaying every moment, every word, every glance, looking for the rot. So I drove home, unplugged my Wi-Fi, turned off my phone, and powered up my old laptop, the one with no cloud sync, no automatic backups, nothing traceable. I wasn't being dramatic. I just didn't trust anything anymore. The USB made a soft click as I slid it in. No label, no password, just a folder titled, Things You Shouldn't Ignore. Inside, 14 video files, 2 PDFs, and a single audio recording labeled, Play Me First. My hands were already sweating. I clicked the audio file. Her voice filled the room. Calm, collected, almost chipper, like she was giving a tutorial on how to cook risotto. If you're hearing this, you've probably seen too much. Or maybe not enough. That depends on what Harlan told you. He never could keep his mouth shut. She laughed, like this was all a joke. A game she was narrating while I sat there unraveling. Let's skip the guilt, shall we? You want answers? I'm giving them to you. What happens next? Well, that depends on how smart you are. Start with the folder marked Maybe. And Marshall, don't do anything stupid. You're not built for vengeance. You're built for waiting. The recording ended. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost knocked over the laptop. I opened the Maybe folder. The first video was surveillance footage, grainy, low-res, black and white. Darla walking through what looked like a hotel lobby. She wasn't alone. A man walked beside her, arm around her waist. Not the guy from the lake house. Someone else. Older. Bald. Expensive coat. They didn't look like strangers. They looked rehearsed. The timestamp was from 9 months ago, back when I thought we were planning a vacation together. Back when she told me she was going to a weekend workshop in Boulder for work. The next few files were more of the same. Different places. Different men. But always the same Darla. Poised, confident, like she was acting out a part she'd memorized long ago. In some videos, she changed her hair. In others, her clothes were conservative, professional. Once, she even wore a name tag with a completely different name. Aaron Daly. I wasn't watching infidelity. I was watching a performance. A rotation. An operation. Each man. Each city. Each identity. The first PDF was a spreadsheet. Names, dates, flight numbers. Some were redacted. Others were marked with strange codes. Closed, pending, failsafe. My name was on it. Next to me, the word dormant. The second PDF was worse. It was a list of questions. Interview style. Does he question easily? What triggers loyalty? What would make him leave? What would make him stay? How does he respond to perceived abandonment? The bottom had scores. Ratings. Psychological metrics. I realized then, I had been part of a case study. She'd been observing me, testing me, watching how I reacted to pain, silence, affection, withdrawal. Every move, every non-move, was recorded somewhere in her mental archive. I was never her husband. I was never her partner. I was her subject. The final file was a video, 10 minutes long, titled simply, Insurance. It was her, sitting in our old bedroom. She wore the cardigan I gave her on our first anniversary. The one she said looked like I stole it from a grandmother. She stared straight into the camera. If anything happens to me, she said, this file goes to the police. It outlines every emotional manipulation, every erratic behavior, every threat. Marshall has a temper. I fear he might harm me. My mouth dropped open. He has a way of gaslighting me, she continued. It's subtle. He makes me feel crazy for needing space. He spies. He digs. He tracks my location. She smiled then. And when I finally leave, he'll play the victim so convincingly. You won't believe how quickly people will rally to his side. I slammed the laptop shut. I couldn't breathe. My vision blurred. It wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't even cruelty. This was calculated character assassination, designed in advance, documented, delivered with precision. She had been erasing me long before she ever disappeared. And now I understood something terrifying. This wasn't just about love. It wasn't even about power. It was about control. Narrative control. Legal control. Psychological control. If she wanted to vanish, she could. If she wanted to ruin me before vanishing, even easier. And suddenly, one question screamed in my mind louder than all the others. If this is what she left behind, what did she take with her? After I shut the laptop, I just sat in silence. For hours. The sun came up, then down. I didn't move. I didn't eat. I didn't shower. The room felt like it was shrinking with every minute that passed, like the walls had watched those videos too and were now folding in with judgment. I couldn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? She had the footage, the files, the pre-recorded message painting me as unstable. She had the leverage to make my truth sound like delusion and my fears sound like aggression. She didn't just leave me. She pre-buried me, socially and emotionally. But I wasn't the only one. Harlan had mentioned a name during our talk, someone he said she'd been with before. A guy from Portland. He didn't have much to go on, just a first name and a city. Connor, he'd said. Or maybe Carter. Something with AC. That was enough. I spent the next 8 hours digging through old bookmarks, public forums, alumni records from her university, Reddit threads, legal databases. I almost gave up twice. But then I found it, buried in the comments of a blog post about psychological manipulation and identity theft. A username, CoffeeConnor88. The post was a 5-paragraph rant. Unverified. No personal info. Just a cryptic warning. Don't trust the one who disappears clean. She doesn't break hearts. She rewrites stories. You think you're crazy, and then she hands you the script. I created a burner email and sent him a message. Subject, she left me too. I think I'm next. I didn't expect a reply, but 10 minutes later, I got one. Where are you? Can we talk now? Somewhere public. He picked the place, a rundown vegan cafe with flickering lights and chairs that looked like they were stolen from a high school. He walked in wearing an oversized coat, sunglasses, and that look I now recognized in the mirror, like someone whose soul had been scooped out and replaced with doubt. He sat down, didn't order anything. You're the husband? He asked. His voice was hoarse, like he hadn't used it in days. I nodded. Marshall. He stared at me for a beat, then said, She called me Caleb. For a year. That wasn't my name. She knew it. She just liked how it sounded on me. That threw me. She renamed you? She rebuilt me, he said flatly, then deleted the version she didn't like. I let that sink in, then asked, what happened? Why did she leave? She didn't leave. I did. After I found out she'd used my identity to open a line of credit in another state. I only caught it because the bank called asking to verify a $14,000 furniture purchase. My stomach turned. She kept everything clean, he continued. Used aliases. Changed IPs. Rerouted calls. Made it look like I was hiding something. By the time I confronted her, she already had a friend at the police department on speed dial. Told them I was harassing her. I got a restraining order within 48 hours. But you had proof. No one cares. She files first. Gets ahead of the story. She cries in court, Marshall. She has the face for it. That dead stare, the half tremble in her lip, the calculated silence. She makes it look like you're the manipulator. He looked down at his hands. They were trembling. She even showed them recordings of me shouting. Not the part where she pushed me to the edge. Just the moment I broke. That's what she collects. Your breaks. Never your warnings. I didn't speak. I didn't have words. Caleb, or whatever his real name was, leaned forward, voice low. Tell me something. Has she mentioned the word release? I blinked. What? She always uses that word near the end. It's her way of shifting guilt. She said it to me like she was doing me a favor. This is your release. As if burning my life down was a gift. I didn't answer, because she had said it. Once. Quietly. Coldly. You're free now, Marshall. This is your release. At the time, I thought she meant it metaphorically, like we were finally done pretending. But now I saw it for what it was. A line. A rehearsed, intentional line. I asked him one final question. Why me? He shook his head. She doesn't pick targets. She picks tools. You gave her what she needed: stability, predictability, trust. She used you to rebuild her image for whatever came next. And once you were no longer useful, he mimed wiping a whiteboard clean. Gone. I sat there in silence as he got up to leave. But just before he walked away, he turned back and said something I'll never forget. She's not running from you. She's setting up the next version of herself, somewhere far from here, with someone who doesn't know yet that he's just a stand-in. And then he was gone. I didn't leave the cafe right away. I sat there until the waitress started wiping down chairs like I was invisible, replaying Caleb's voice in my head. The panic, the regret, the hollow way he said, "She doesn't pick targets, she picks tools." That line haunted me, but it also woke something up. For weeks I'd been floating, a ghost in my own life, orbiting a woman who had already emotionally buried me, waiting for answers I hoped someone else would hand me. But now I saw it clearly. I wasn't just a casualty. I was part of her pattern. But patterns leave traces. And patterns can be broken. When I got home, I didn't cry. I didn't scroll through old pictures or rewatch wedding videos. I powered up the same offline laptop, organized the files from the USB, combined them with the videos Darla had accidentally saved to our shared cloud, then added timestamps, metadata, and a narrative, my narrative. It took me 3 days. I didn't sleep much. I drank more coffee than any doctor would recommend. But by the time I was done, I had something she never expected me to build. A timeline, a truth, a trap. I sent the full package to 3 places. An attorney who owed my brother a favor. A journalist who ran a podcast about digital fraud and psychological abuse. Her employer's HR director, whose email I still had from when we once arranged a surprise anniversary party at her office. Then I waited. I didn't contact Darla. I didn't warn her. I didn't even block her number. I just let the silence return. Only this time, I was the one holding it. It took 4 days. On the 5th, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. A man. Corporate voice. Stern. Mr. Lindell? We're conducting an internal investigation into a woman named Darla L. We received an anonymous data packet linking her to multiple counts of fraudulent identity use, misrepresentation, and workplace misconduct. We'd like to speak with you. I gave my statement. Calmly. Factually. No emotion. 3 days later, the podcast went live. The Disappearing Woman. 1 face, 5 stories, 0 regret. My voice was disguised, but the message was clear. And I wasn't alone. The episode featured 2 other men, both from cities Darla had rebuilt herself in. Both had lost money. One had nearly lost custody of his kids. One still hadn't recovered financially. But all of us had pieces of the same puzzle. And together, we made her story harder to rewrite. The ripple was fast. Her HR department suspended her. The man from the lake house dumped her. Turns out he got suspicious after finding a fake ID in her purse. The same name she used in Tulsa. Her online profiles vanished within 24 hours. Then her phone number changed. Then the apartment lease downtown was suddenly canceled, the one I'd found in that PDF. She was trying to vanish again. Reset the game board. But this time, she couldn't. Because no matter where she went, the story followed. Our story. One by one, people started connecting the dots. Old employers. Past roommates. A grad school professor who once wrote her a glowing recommendation, then emailed the podcast to say she always wondered where the missing laptop went. Darla didn't get arrested. There was no viral confrontation. No revenge scream fest. She simply stopped being believed. And for someone like her, that was the worst punishment imaginable. As for me, I moved out of the apartment, left the city, took a remote job doing web audits for nonprofits. Quiet work, honest people, clean air. I don't check her socials. I don't Google her name. I don't need to. She left behind everything but one thing. Not the man she manipulated or the man she buried in backup folders and lies, but the man who got back up. And maybe that's the part she didn't rehearse. The part where I didn't break. The part where I didn't stay silent. The part where the story ends, not with her version of me, but with mine.